All right, let's talk about a game that was supposed to be a FIBA EuroBasket classic. You had a semifinal, a huge regional rivalry between Greece and Turkey, and all eyes were on this epic duel between two NBA giants, Giannis Antetokounmpo and Alperen Şengün. Everyone, and I mean everyone, was expecting a nail-biter. But what we got, well, it was something else entirely. It was a tactical ambush.
So, you've got the story everyone was ready for on one side, right? A tense, down-to-the-wire classic that would come down to which superstar made the last big play. And then, you have what actually happened. A total demolition from start to finish. This wasn't just an upset, it was a clinical, systematic dismantling. 26. Just let that number sink in. That was the final margin of victory. Look, in a game between two European basketball powerhouses, a 26-point gap it's almost unthinkable. That's a number that just screams total domination.
And there it is, the final score that sent absolute shockwaves through the basketball world. Turkey 94, Greece 68. A result that punched Turkey's ticket to the EuroBasket final for the first time in 24 years. Just incredible.
So the big question is, how on earth did this happen? How did a game that promised to be a classic turn into a blowout? Well, the answer really boils down to two things: an unexpected offensive explosion and an absolute defensive masterclass.
This game got turned on its head right from the jump. But you know what's crazy? The spark didn't come from the superstar everyone was watching. Nope, it came from an unsung hero who just completely took over and changed everything.
Yeah, while all the cameras were focused on Şengün and Giannis, the entire first quarter belonged to one guy, 27-year-old power forward Ercan Osmani.
He just erupted for a staggering 14 points in the first quarter alone. That's more than half of his team's total. He came out of the locker room absolutely on fire, hitting Turkey's first two shots, both threes, and gave his team a lead they would never, ever give back.
And here's the wildest part, his efficiency. He literally did not miss. 4 shots from behind the arc, 4 straight makes. This wasn't just a guy getting hot. This was devastating, perfect shooting that the Greek defense had absolutely no answer for.
So by the time that first quarter buzzer sounded, Turkey was already up by 10 points, almost single-handedly because of Osmani's explosion. They grabbed control right away and completely set the tone for the rest of the game.
Now here's what's so brilliant about this. Osmani's scoring had this incredible ripple effect. See, Greece's whole game plan was to pack the paint to stop Şengün. But with Osmani hitting everything from outside, it forced their defense to scramble. Defenders had to fly out to the perimeter, which just created chaos and opened everything up. It was a strategic grenade, and Greece just never recovered.
But look, Osmani's incredible start was only half the story. Because with the offense firing like that, it was coach Ergin Ataman's brilliant defensive game plan that turned a hot start into a complete beatdown.
The entire defensive strategy really revolved around one main goal: shutting down the two-time NBA MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo. And he didn't just throw one guy at him. Oh no, this was a sophisticated, team-wide lockdown.
The way they layered this defense was just perfect. Okay, so first you've got Osmani using his strength to bother Giannis's initial moves. Then right behind him, you have Alperen Şengün acting as this massive help-side anchor, ready to challenge anything at the rim. But it actually started even before that, with the guards putting relentless pressure on the ball to deny easy entry passes. And if Giannis did manage to get the ball somewhere dangerous, the whole defense would just collapse into the paint, building a literal wall and daring anybody else on Greece to beat them. And the proof? It's right here in the stat line. 12 points on 13 shots for one of the most unstoppable players on the entire planet. They contained him, they frustrated him, and they pretty much erased his impact from the game. It just worked.
So what happens when you apply that much suffocating pressure? You get this, a mind-boggling 22 turnovers for Greece. That is the most turnovers in a EuroBasket semifinal in 30 years. 30!
And you have to understand, these weren't just guys making sloppy passes. No, the Turkish defense forced these errors. The constant pressure, the wall in the paint, the focus on their superstar, it all forced Greece into panicked decisions and completely blew up their offensive rhythm.
Which brings us to the man at the center of it all, Alperen Şengün. Because while Osmani was the surprise star, Şengün was the team's engine. He was the fulcrum that the entire operation balanced on.
I mean, his stat line is great, 15, 12, and 6, but it doesn't even begin to tell the whole story.
After being held scoreless in that first quarter, he didn't try to force his own shot. Instead, he showed this incredible maturity and just shifted his game completely to become a facilitator. He drew double teams and then used his amazing court vision to find open teammates. It proved that for him, success is measured by wins, not just his own points.
So this historic win sets the stage for the biggest test of all, a gold medal showdown against the reigning FIBA World Cup champions, the undefeated German machine.
And this final, it's a true clash of stories, isn't it? On one side, you have Turkey, this passionate, undefeated challenger that's become the story of the whole tournament. And on the other, you've got Germany, the established power, the defending champs who have just been ruthlessly efficient getting here.
And make no mistake, Germany is an absolute juggernaut. They're the highest scoring team in the tournament, averaging over 100 points a game. They're led by a killer NBA trio in Dennis Schroeder, Franz Wagner, and Daniel Theis. And they have the experience of bringing back 9 players from that World Cup winning squad. They know how to win.
So this final really comes down to a clash of styles. For Turkey, the path to gold is to do it all over again. Bring that suffocating defense, grind it out in the half court, and run everything through Şengün. For Germany, it's all about using their incredible offensive depth and championship experience. They want to push the pace, score in transition, and not let that ferocious Turkish defense get set.
And that leaves us with one final, fascinating question. Can the structured, powerful German machine simply overwhelm this adaptable, defensively terrifying, and emotionally driven Turkish team? Can Coach Ataman and Şengün pull off one last masterpiece to win it all? Or will Germany's championship formula just be too much? The answer is going to crown a champion for sure, but it might just define the blueprint for winning in international basketball for years to come.